Well, here we go again. We're going to do some quick answers to tough questions for Christianity. And how about now we discuss the issue of, can we really trust the Gospels? The Gospels are coming under a lot of attack these days. Oh, they're not trustworthy. Really? Well, this is going to be a very short explanation, and I hope a good response. But keep in mind, I've got audio, I've got video, I've got a book that you can access on my website if you want a more complete answer. But how about this? Any ancient book is judged by two things. How many manuscripts are there of that book? And how close are those manuscripts to the original copies? Because we don't have any. Zero. We've got no originals of Homer and Thucydides and Plato and Caesar. Yes, and the Gospels, we do not have any of the originals. But if we have enough copies and they come close enough to the time period, we can trust them. And here's the good news. The Gospels are far closer to the originals, and we have thousands more to look at and to compare than we do any other ancient writing. If we're going to mistrust the Gospels, we have to throw out all of these other ancient authors. Secondly, we can trust the Gospels because they were written by eyewitnesses. Now, I don't want to take the time because it's supposed to be a really short episode, but I will do another quick answers section that talks just about the eyewitness value of the New Testament Gospels. The other thing to consider is, well, can you trust the Gospels? It seems weird because there are places where the order is different from one Gospel to the next, or one leaves something out and one puts something in, and they don't seem to match up in some cases. Well, here's the idea. Ancient historical writing should not be held to the same standard of the writing that we have today. They had different standards. It was perfectly okay to move things around. It was okay to leave some things out. It was okay to hurry time along because the focus was just on the character of the person. You were not trying to get every single episode in exactly the right order. So it's not fair to judge the Gospels by the standards we have today. Other people will say, well, the Gospels were probably created by the later church. Oh, really? But the church, if they're going to do this, is going to play up the good things about the disciples because the disciples are what established the church. And how did the disciples come across? Not so good. Get thee behind me, Satan, Jesus says to Peter. They look fumbly, they look confused, they run from Jesus. No later church, if they're going to make that sort of stuff up, is going to do that to the gospel writers, the early disciples. Also, many of the things that the church was dealing with by the 300s and 400s, like how do you conduct a church, what kind of hierarchy do you want to have, Jesus doesn't talk about that. And if you're going to make Jesus appear in the 3rd or 4th century and write about him then, you're going to have him tackle those things. Then you got the problem, people will say, well, how come there's only 4 Gospels? Shoot, you've got the Gospel of Thomas, and you've got Mary, and you've got Peter, and all these other people. Shouldn't we trust them? Aren't they on an equal footing with these 4 Gospels? And the answer is absolutely not. These other Gospels are far later. They're in the 2nd and 3rd century. They were not eyewitness at all. So they're not on an equal footing in any way. They reflect a different time period and a different attitude. Can we trust the Gospels? Yeah. The Church Fathers said we can trust what was written. They wrote in the 100s and the 200s. They verified the information that was in there. One more issue, how about the variance? By that I mean different manuscripts. You could put any 2 or any 3 or any 4 manuscripts together, and you'll see that they don't work out word for word. One might say, Jesus, the Christ. No one may say Christ Jesus. That counts as a variation. And so if you count those, you get hundreds of thousands of variations. And people say, who knows? But here's the good news. Not a single important doctrinal statement is changed because there are some spelling differences. Yeah, that's the majority. That's the vast majority of these variations. It's spelling differences. Or it's like I said, Christ Jesus instead of Jesus Christ. Doesn't change the meaning at all. So nothing important has ever been confused. There's not a single manuscript that says Jesus actually was not crucified, or Jesus was not God, or any of these other things. So can we trust the Gospels? In a short statement, one word, yes.